Hey everyone, Rock DIY here. Finally broke down and went and bought a triple bagger for my Cub Cadet Ultimo ZTXS4 54-inch deck. Unfortunately, when you do look this one up on the Cub Cadet website, originally it tells you it's $699, but you actually have to put in not the ZTXS4. You actually have to put the model number in, and when you put the model number in, it'll tell you that the triple bagger is, well, it was $999 at one point. When I inquired about it today, it was $924, but I got a little bit off due to the box being pretty damaged. The majority of the lawnmowers will tell you that you have to buy a weight kit that has to be attached to the front. That triple bagger that I bought comes with that, but it's not needed for this lawnmower. This bagger, the model number is 49A 7000-2100. The contents of the 48-inch triple bagger and the contents of the 54/60-inch triple bagger, which the contents look pretty much exactly the same. How you assemble is different between a 48 and a 54/60. It shows you the contents, but the pictures aren't exactly great, so I don't know for sure what is what. Some things are obvious, but they don't have anything labeled. They got everything listed, but they don't have anything labeled down here. There are these two bags of nuts and bolts. This one has a part number on it, 689-02299, and that one is listed in here as right there. And then this is supposed to be this pack, but the part number is different on this one than it is on the actual bag. This one says 689-02619, and this one's 689-02619. So hopefully the bag is good. These are the weights. This is part of the chute. These parts right here are for mounting. Got some nylon plugs that go right on here. You got the flexible tubing. You got the actual bagger holder. You got the top. You got the actual chute, the screen, and then you've got this piece right here, just like a deflector. There's the three bags right there. What I'm going to do is go through assembling everything step by step. The best thing to do is take everything out of the hardware pack and just kind of lay it out. So you're going to have two of these long threaded bolts, then you're going to have two shorter ones. You'll have 15 of these. You'll have 4 of these, 15 of these, 1 of these, 3 of these, 1 of these, and 3 of these. And the only reason why I say lay them out like this is because once you start putting everything together, you may not necessarily see a picture that says, or shows a picture of one of these. It's just going to give you the number. And so what you'll have to do, for example, when you put this plate and strut brackets together, at the very end it gives you hex head screw, and then it gives you the part number, and then the other part number. So then you got to go back to this picture to make sure that you're using the correct nuts, bolts, washers, or screws. For example, the very first thing is 4 hex head screws, 710-1238. So 710-1238 is this one right here. I said 15, there's actually 14 here, but for this first part, you need 4 of those. Set those in there. And then for the next part, 712-04-063, and that is supposed to be lock nuts. You're going to need 4 of these, and that is for step 1. These are the 3 pieces that are going to be needed with the 4 bolts and 4 locking nuts. These look exactly the same, but the way they go on, and you know that they're going on properly, is right here. There are 2 holes, circular holes, and there's 2 circular holes here. But on the outside, there are slotted holes. So those slotted holes should be facing to the outside and the circular holes to the inside. And then the way this is going to be assembled, so you'll put a bolt here, 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 and here. Bolts will go in this way and the nuts will go on the back side. I didn't say this right from the get-go, but you know whether this is on here properly is you can see here it's solid all the way across, and then up here it's tabbed. So the tabs will be up at the top and the solid part will be down here at the bottom. This is what it will look like when you're done assembling it. And these are nylon lock washers, so they'll go on pretty tight and stay in place. The bolts and the nuts on this bracket are both a 1/2 inch. So this is the back of the tractor. You see there's 4 bolts here. These 2 bolts right here you can take out. In some cases you may not have these 2. If you don't have these 2, they are included in the kit. So this is where you're going to mount this piece right here. You're going to take the bolts out and then put the bolts back in, and they're self-threading. They thread right into the frame, so that will go right there. You'll notice that this is raised up right here. And the reason why is because they reinforced the threaded portion here, and it's got a raised lip, so that will slide right over that. That bracket is on. For this next step, you're going to need the nylon locking nuts, and then you're going to need the 4 bolts, and then you'll need this bracket and this bracket in order to put it together. And when you put these on, you're going to have to hold them in place, so you want to make sure you have these close by or in your pocket. So first things first, just so you're aware, right there and right there are already 2 pre-drilled holes that you're going to be using when you put these brackets on. So you're going to take this bracket, place it underneath, make sure the pins go up inside the frame, and you're going to take this one, lay it across the top, and then start putting your nuts and bolts in. Tighten everything down. For the next part of the assembly, you're going to take your pre-assembled bracket, the one you did earlier, and what you're going to do is make sure the long parts are sticking up and the plate is down towards the bottom. And then what you're going to do, there's a hole here and a hole here, a hole here, hole here, and before you start this, you want to make sure you got 2 nuts and 2 bolts on hand. And then with the bolts, you're going to go from the inside to the outside. Once you get the bolts on, the bracket will hang freely so you don't have to hold it. And then put your nylon locking nuts on. Alright, so the next step is move the bracket up and put the nuts and bolts in. The issue you're going to have is tightening those down. So before you put the nuts and bolts up here, the best thing to do is tighten these as much as possible. Not all the way, but tighten it down enough that you can still move this bracket up, and then put your nuts and bolts on, because they're going to be difficult to get to. Now that the bottom bracket is secured, then what you're going to do is from the outside in, put a bolt and then a washer, and you're going to do that on both sides. On this next step, you'll need this bracket. It's completely assembled already. You don't need to put anything together. And then you will also need this bolt with the washer on it. And then what you need to know is that this piece will lock in up top here, and then depending on your deck size, this will be 48, 54, and 60. So you're going to orient it just like this. You're going to put it up here and lock it down, and then look down here, find the hole that lines up for your lawnmower. In my case, mine is a 54. So that bolt is going to get tightened down right there to lock it in. Unfortunately, in my case, in order to put this bracket on, I got to put the bolt going into this hole right here. But if you look closely, if you can see it here, the bottom of the square here is too high. So when I try to put the bolt in, and this is a fine thread, so when I try to put the bolt in, I can't go straight in with it. It's at an angle, so it won't even catch. So in my case, what I'm going to have to do is drill this out on the bottom so that the bolt can go in, because it's not going to go on the way that it is right now. So right here, I ran a 3/8 inch bit through it to make the bottom a little bit bigger, so it should go on now because it was just off a tiny bit. For the next step, you're going to need the bag holder. I already put the cap plugs in. I don't know if these shrunk up or what, but they don't even stay in. Might need to put some glue on them, but none of them stay in. You're going to need the bag holder. You're going to need 3 carriage bolts, 3 cup washers, and lock nuts. So the bag holder will slide right over the top, and then you're going to take your 3 carriage bolts, slide down on the outside in. The 3 cup washers need to go to the inside, and the actual curved portion is going to be facing the bag holder. And then you're going to put the nut on, and then do the same thing with the other 2. That part is complete. You got the carriage bolts going from the outside in, you got the cup washers and the lock nuts on, and you'll notice when you're tightening down the nuts, the cup washers will flatten out pretty good, and then it should be pretty sturdy at this point. For the next step, this piece is going to go on. You'll see where this part right here snaps on right here, and then this part will snap on right here. Also keep in mind these 3 holes right here for the next step. You can also see right here, there's a groove there, or a cutout, to make sure that you can put this piece on. That will go on right there. That piece is on there. Next piece to go on is this piece. It's the deflector. Piece is kind of odd the way it sits in there, because it's got indent here, and then nothing there. And when you put it on, it doesn't sit flush. Here is what the deflector looks like once it's on, and it seems kind of odd the way it sits on there, but the 3 black screws that you get, the very coarse screws, they're in a separate bag when you get it, Just be aware that when you go to put them in, you got to kind of force them. They don't necessarily want to go in, so you'll have to give them a little torque to get them in, but they will go in. The next thing to go on is going to be this bagger deflector screen. You want to make sure this part gets guided into here, and then you're going to put the top part on both sides into the slot. It's a little tricky, but it's flexible enough to get it in there. For this next part, you're going to need the bagger cover, and you're also going to need this rod. And what you're going to do is take the bagger cover, and you're going to make sure that it goes between these two tabs right here, one here and one over there. You can see here the metal tab and the bagger cover, and then also the other side. Both need to go to the inside of the metal tabs. From the left side, you've got to put the metal pin through the metal tab. Then guide it through. To go in. The next step is to put your bags on. You don't necessarily have to do that in order, but you can if you want to. For the next step, you're going to need this here, also the boot. So you'll have to raise this up, and then you'll also have to lift this inner one up to put this on. And you see here there's a hole on the bracket, and there's a threaded bolt right here. This part is going to go in there. This hole right here has to go on this pin right here. Alright, so I got the hole on the bracket over the pin that's on the lawnmower. Now what I have to do is get this in here. I'm going to make sure you push this all the way in and get it pretty tight. There you go. The boot is in place, locked down. The next to the last step before you put the counterbalance weights on the front of the tractor is to put your hose on. And you have to start by putting the hose on here first. You can do this with the lid open. And if you look inside here, there are some little tabs, and then there's also 3 stop tabs in the back, and the hose goes on counterclockwise. This hose is pretty heavy. Then what you have to do, and this is easier if you let the hose sit out in the sun for a little while before you try to put it on. Much more flexible. Next step is to put it over this, just like that. You can also see the hose to the inside. And again, other than the counterbalance weights on the front, that's pretty much the assembly of the triple bagger on the ZTXS4 54. These are the pieces and parts remaining to put the counterbalance weights on the tractor. That's a bracket. That's a bracket. You got a left and right bracket. You got these bolts to secure it to the front of the tractor. And then you got this solid weight right here. I don't know if it's like 25 or 30 pounds. And then there's 3 of the smaller plates. But I was told by the dealership that even though these were included with the purchase of the triple bagger, they are not used on the zero-turn tractors with the steering wheel. And from what I can tell, that's a true statement, but I'm gonna need to verify. But the way that the brackets need to go on, there's no way they could possibly go on with this setup. It's got to go over the frame, which means where the lights are would be in the way. This would be in the way, and it can't slide here because of this here. So I'm gonna verify by calling Cub Cadet, not the dealership, but calling them main number just to verify that the weights don't go on it. If you're wondering why, when you buy the triple bagger for the ZTXS4, if you're wondering why it's more expensive than the other triple baggers, main reason why is because of this counterbalance kit that comes with this triple bagger. It all comes together, so it's typically, well, it used to be $1,300 and then it became $9 something. And unfortunately, the mounting hardware for these weights can't go on this lawnmower, so you end up buying this and you can't use it. Well, you can use the weights, but you can't use the mounts or the bolts or nuts. So then you have to go and buy another kit just for the mounting hardware. You can use the weights, but you have to buy a different kit that costs about $50 to $60 in order to mount the weights to the front of the lawnmower. I mentioned it previously, but the triple bagger kit for this lawnmower is 49A70002100. The part number for the brackets to put these on your lawnmower is 490-950-C062. That kit comes with the brackets and the nuts and bolts in order to put those weights on your lawnmower. Depending on who you talk to, they say that the front of this lawnmower, because of the steering wheel, the linkage, the added weight to the front, that you shouldn't need the weights. My concern is the slope of my property is if the bagger gets too heavy, there's a chance that it could come up or pop a wheelie on me or whatever. But Cub Cadet says that based on the way this lawnmower is built, that the front end will not come up. So I'm going to try it without the weights on it and see how it works.